Hello everyone! I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today we are going to talk about how reading helps improve your writing. Now, this is something that sounds a little bit Captain Obvious, but it is something that people often don't think about, is that reading books is a helpful tool for improving your writing. Now, how exactly does reading books improve your writing? And the first thing is that there are different ways to read a book. The first way that we are all familiar with is reading a book simply for pleasure. That means picking up a book and just reading it for the story and having a fun afternoon reading that book. The second way, which we're also all familiar with and do not enjoy, is the back in school, you have to read this book and find all of the hidden meanings and the tropes and the similes and the blah blah blah, the literary analysis and all that. But the third way of reading a book is a critical thinking way of reading from the lens of a writer. Now, what exactly does that mean? That's something that I experienced in college, is that I actually had classes where that is specifically what the class was all about. We had a curriculum of books that we had to read for the semester, and we read them through the lens of being a writer. What that means is when you're reading the story, you pick apart what exactly is the writer doing here, and not from the literary simile sort of lens, but from the lens of actually crafting a story. So kind of reverse engineering the story. Thinking about, okay, these sort of details come up a lot in this story. Why does the writer feel that these are important? Why does the writer decide to use these in particular as opposed to other details? Noticing the cadence of the story, noticing the style of voice, even so much as noticing the physical aspect of the story, as in the layout. Do they have really big juicy paragraphs, or is it that everything is quick one-liners? Is there a lot of dialogue? Is there a lot of prose? All these kinds of things are ways that you can examine a book in order to really think about how exactly did this writer create this book, and then internalizing that and thinking about, okay, what aspects of this do I like for my own writing? What things do I not like for my own writing? And what things are things that you can kind of assimilate into your writing, but in a different way? So for example, one of the classes that I had that was of this style when I was in college, we had to read books that were all different types of layout styles. That means that each book was very unique in how it was presented. There was one book where it was just quick line. Every paragraph was a sentence, and it was very dialogue heavy. It was very quick, it was very snappy, and I was able to read through it, I think, in one day, honestly. And then we had another book where the style was, there was literally no punctuation. The entire book was just one giant run-on sentence. To be perfectly honest, I hated it. I am very much the kind of person where I need punctuation in order to understand what I'm reading. My brain needs those periods in order to have a mental break of, okay, this thought is done and we're starting a new thought. And the fact that it was just all blah, 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 oh my God, no. It was horrible and I hated it. I'm sure that that book has its own merit, especially in terms of breaking out of traditional style and all of that, and artistic merit and whatever, but it was absolutely lost on me, to be honest. But that's also important, is also reading books and saying to yourself, wow, I really don't like this, and understanding what exactly it is that you don't like and why you don't like it, so that then you can apply that to your writing. Because for me, punctuation is very important to me. So I make sure that I have that in my writing, that I make sure that each thought in my writing is clear and precise with, okay, we have this thought, and then we have a period, and now we have a new thought, and we have a period, and so on and so forth. So that was important for me to discover about the way that I prefer to present my writing. Another one that I read was that there was no dialogue. It was just prose. It was just all of these thoughts, all presented without any dialogue. And that was really interesting to read. Reading different types of writing is also very helpful because it helps you to really think outside of your own writing style, and also a lot of times think outside of traditional writing styles and really see what's out there, so that then you can look at your writing and perhaps make changes to your writing, or even be more solidified with your own writing style to be like, you know what? This is really working for me. this is really awesome. And maybe even finding validation in those other writing styles, that it's like, hey, this author writes a lot like how I write. They got published. Why can't I get published? It's very validating to see that sort of stuff. Seeing what else is out there can be very validating and can also help to push your writing to the next level. The next part of why it's important to read books in order to help improve your writing is just for the sake of gaining new ideas, keeping yourself fresh. There are constantly new books on the market practically every day. And so genres are evolving. Audiences are evolving. What is popular last week might not be popular this week. And I'm not saying to chase down every trend and to worry about what's popular and what's not so much as keeping your finger on that pulse. Knowing what the writing world around you is doing is very important in order to make sure that your writing is also a success. And a big part of that comes from just simply reading what else is out there. So if you're a fantasy genre writer, read other fantasy books. Find out what the current top lists are. Find out what books just got released this month and go read them. See what's out there. See how maybe this is very similar to my writing, or wow, I'm writing stuff that's very different than this. And different doesn't necessarily mean bad, and neither does the same either. But it can be very validating to know, hey, you know what? I'm on track. A lot of other people are doing this too. I must be doing something right. Or conversely, if you're doing something different, hey, you know what? The market seems to be really flooded with this style right now. Maybe I'm ahead of the curve here. Maybe once I get this published, I'll be ahead of the game. So it's always good to find different perspectives and to see what else is out there and what's currently popular. It's also important so that you can also get new ideas. As many people say, there are no new ideas, that we all keep rehashing the same however many story ideas that it is you believe, whether it's 3 tropes or 5 tropes or 10 tropes or whatever. A stranger comes to town, the reluctant hero, all those different tropes have been done over and over and over again. We know that. But has it been told from your perspective? Has it been told with your voice? And that's really what it comes down to in writing these days, is how is this story presented? And that is what's most important. The best way to put your best foot forward with presenting your story is seeing how other people present their stories. And you can also steal ideas from other people's books. Every author does it. It's just the way that it is. Now, of course, there's a big difference between stealing someone's story idea and stealing ideas. Wherein is the line? The line is for instance, one of my favorite authors is Juliette Marillier, and she wrote the Seven Waters series. And the thing that I stole from her series is that I really love the way that these stories are told. I really love the voice of these stories. It has that once upon a time feel, and it's very detailed, and you feel like you are just in it, right there, right next to the main character, walking alongside them, and I love that. And so I've taken that same feeling, that same way of telling a story, and I've really put that into not just my fantasy stories, but honestly all of my stories. That same feeling of closeness to the main character or main characters. And that's where the line lies, is how are you like, oh, I really like this thing that this writer wrote, and then how are you transforming it to make it your own? That's the difference between stealing somebody's work and simply stealing an idea. And I don't really even like using the word stealing, because that sounds so disingenuous and like you're taking something from that writer. If you're taking something from their book, that's theft, and that's not okay. But if you are reading something and you enjoy something about it, and then you take that and make that your own, that's the creative process. Very important differentiation there. Always keep that in mind, in that if there is something that you really like in a book that you read, or something that you really like that a particular author does, sit and think about what it is you like about that, and then the next step, you have to do step 2, which is then how do you take that and incorporate it into your writing to make it your own? And honestly, that's just like 101 of being an author, is taking things from all these different aspects and putting it into a story, whether it's from other books that you've read, whether it's other authors that you follow, whether it's from your own personal life, whether it's from maybe the lives of your family and friends, whether maybe it's from circumstances around you, especially if you're like a political writer talking about world events, talking about things that are happening, maybe not necessarily personally to you, but in the world around you. All those sorts of things that inspire your writing, that's all taking from these different places and then making them your own in your story. Last but not least, one of the things that is a common theme in when I do interviews, when I talk about my writing process, all that kind of stuff, is I talk about the well of creativity. Meaning, think about it as a literal well that you draw water from, except for in this case, you draw inspiration from it. In order to continue to draw from that well, you do have to fill it up. And a really great way to fill that well up is by reading. You would be amazed at how much inspiration you can draw just from reading other books. Even if you're not reading it from that critical writing perspective, if you're just reading it for enjoyment, you can still glean so much inspiration from reading books. So that's a big part of the reason why it's just so important to read books as a writer, is to crack open a book, go be somewhere else figuratively for the day. Let your mind rest. Think about other things. You never know how you might solve that plot hole for your story or come up with an idea for a new story. It's really amazing where books can take you. So those are some big reasons why it's really important as a writer and an author to go out and read other books, as well as also community support. Read your friends' books. Read books by other authors. One of the best ways to get support is to give support. So I hope you all liked this video and found it helpful. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.